Sportsmanlike conduct on all players from both teams. That will be their first unsportsmanlike conduct foul. After the play, unsportsmanlike conduct on all players from both teams. That will be their first unsportsmanlike conduct foul. After the play, unsportsmanlike conduct on all players from both teams. That will be their first unsportsmanlike conduct foul. After the play, unsportsmanlike conduct on all players from both teams. That will be their first unsportsmanlike conduct foul.
Everybody, listen carefully.
You're listening to the SEC Insider Hit on the Boatbound Show.
Fueled by Fleetway Market.
Fuel up your car and cooler at Fleetway this football season.
Let's go.
All right, good morning. Welcome into the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Jason, real quick, we had a text, a listener want to know where is Ole Miss going and where are they projected on the Action Network and where is Missouri projected?
So Ole Miss is projected for the Citrus Bowl. The Citrus Bowl against Iowa. And the Rebs are a 13-point favorite in that matchup if it goes down that way.
Okay.
And then Missouri is projected the Cotton Bowl against Texas. And Missouri would be a 1.5-point underdog if that game took place today.
Okay. And we got Missouri and Florida this weekend. Ole Miss doesn't play a conference game. They'll beat La Monroe 73-3. So, and then I don't know. Is there enough juice down the stretch to? I mean, Bartu will be able to tell us. But is there enough juice down the stretch? If with Ole Miss blowing out Mississippi State, is that enough to leapfrog force? How many spots did we say?
4, yeah.
4 spots?
Yeah, Ole Miss is 13 now.
Okay.
But Missouri plays Florida and they play Arkansas last game of the year. So
okay.
Arkansas is not the best.
Well,
they're not good, but they beat Florida, and Florida, has shown that they can beat teams like Tennessee.
Okay. I don't know. That doesn't sound like I like Missouri in both of those games, but I could be wrong.
Definitely.
All right. The Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Our SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Muskelly Furniture, Muskelly Sleep Stores, all the amazing mattresses that they carry, including the purple mattress that I sleep on. Well, maybe not every night when I'm out of town, but last night I slept on the purple mattress from Muskelly Sleep Store. Also, you're talking about sectionals, sofas, bar stools, all sorts of things at Muskelly Furniture. And then, of course, you can find the purple mattress, among others, that you may want to lay down on and try at any of the Muskelly Sleep Stores. Jason, I think we got. I mean, where are you right now? We're 8 days away. Are you 6-7 casseroles in? I mean, how does it look at the house?
I've had more soup in the past 2 weeks,
okay,
than I think I've had in the last year.
Wow,
went chili last night.
You went chili?
Yeah, went chili. I was feeling some chili. I didn't have the Fritos though, so Mississippi State insider Steve Robertson will be mad at me for not going Frito pie.
Oh, does he go Frito pie?
Yeah, that's what when we were talking about nachos, he was like, "Oh, he did
that's right.
He did Frito pie."
Yeah.
But I did go chili last night and watched the kind of with the sound off the rankings show because I just wanted to see how far that loss dropped Ole Miss. And 4 spots isn't the worst.
That seems excessive to me, but I don't. Again, Bartu and Adam break down all those numbers, and I don't. I'm just like you. I watch it and go, "Oh, okay,
yeah."
Whatever.
Next? Yeah, what next?
Yeah, I mean, the committee's bogus. All they do is fly in and eat steaks and drink wine. Okay, so there is no eye test. There is no gut. I mean, that's what all our guys listening and us, that's what we go through every weekend, right? We watch games, we go with our gut, and we go with our eye test, and that's why we're wrong. I mean, they've come up with a formula. They usually adhere to it, and they deviated just once a couple of weeks ago, and then they kind of rectified it afterwards, right, the next week. And we are where we are. I mean, but I will say this: it has been accurate at the very end once they get the Final Four, and right now, and look, Ohio State and Michigan's going to shake out, right? I mean, that's going to play its way out. So is Georgia and Bama. So I think that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm just hoping for a better, because I don't know how to get a better national championship when TCU beat Michigan. You know, they proved that they deserve to be in the semifinal at least, because so was Michigan not supposed to be in there or TCU last year? I mean,
I'm still surprised Michigan lost that game.
Me too. And it's crazy. Ohio State
that would have been nuts. Michigan and Ohio State in a national championship game last year. If you think that Ohio State's trying to take out Jim Harbaugh right now, think if they would have met for the national champion. If Ohio State would have skirted past Georgia, Michigan would have done what they were supposed to do and beat TCU. Think about that. And think if we'd have had a national championship game and Michigan beats Ohio State.
Oh, this year they're planting drugs on Jimbo's luggage.
Yeah, I mean, if you thought Texas Longhorn fans wanted Jackie Sherrill out of Texas after winning that A&M Texas matchup 5 times and got him for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and some Skittles to a player, whoa, watch out. Watch out. Yeah, Nick says barely squeaking by Tulane and A&M with backup QBs probably didn't help them. There's no question. Hey, Ole Miss, other than Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, those will be their 2 conference blowout wins. So they needed to blow out Arkansas or blow out Auburn or blow out A&M, I guess. A little bit more game control.
Yeah, I hope Ole Miss fans aren't acting like they're disappointed in a 10-2 season. I hope this a blowout to Georgia didn't change people's perspectives on the season.
No. That's not what we're talking about. We're just debating the bowl. That's not the premise. That's not the point of the conversation.
Yeah, no, but I see people on Twitter and things. They're like,
well, but Twitter, those people are idiots.
Yeah, well, true. Very true.
They have 19 followers and whatever. So no, it's been a great year, and wherever you land, if you go to the citrus or the cotton, you'll enjoy going there. The 13-game bowl streak, which is unbelievable in this state, the 13 in modern era when it actually counts. The 13-game bowl streak is unbelievable. But it's coming to an end. And now Greg Knox is your interim coach. Now, by the way, Greg Knox was the best coach this is not a shot, by the way. I mean, Zach Arnett will be a good defensive coordinator at some point. Will Friend is a good offensive line coach. There's some other, heck, Barbay's not bad. He just walked into an absolute mess. But for $900,000, you had to take the job. When you look, Greg Knox, top 15% special teams coach, top 15% running backs coach. As far as coaches on the staff, he's the best. He wasn't even on the field. They couldn't get him on the field because, for whatever reason, Arnett and crew were told the budget wasn't enough, even though you didn't have to buy out a coach in the transition. A coach unfortunately, tragically, a coach passed away. But how the hell Zach Arnett was told that he couldn't get Greg Knox on the field is beyond me. That goes back to the commitment quotient. Mississippi State likes the idea of winning. Are they committed to winning in football? Are they committed to winning in football? I mean, Sherrill and Mullen woke them up. But man, oh man, you can't go cheap in this sport. And that's something that they've still continued to do. And I don't understand it. It drives everything. Even Chris Lamonis told me a year and a half ago. We were just having a random conversation. He was like, it drives everything. Everything. All right, we are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, driven by your next Ford F-150, pre-owned or new, at Mack Hike Ford in Jackson, I-55 North. Pre-owned and new, best selection in Mississippi and one of the top Ford dealerships in the Southeast. Mack Hike Ford, I-55 North in Jackson. We want to welcome in Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports, best-selling author, He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Want to talk a little bit about this big story with Harbaugh and Michigan against the Big Ten and maybe against Ohio State, however you want to, or maybe all of the Big Ten, however you want to frame this up. Dan Wetzel, good morning. How are you, buddy?
I'm great, Bo. Always good to hear from you.
Well, we really appreciate your time. Friday is big for Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. They may not need him again this weekend, but in Ann Arbor, Thanksgiving weekend, they will need him, or I think they do need him. What are you hearing, and what do you expect to play out Friday between Michigan and Harbaugh in the Big Ten?
Well, it's going to be they have a hearing scheduled on basically a temporary restraining order to stop the Big Ten from being able to suspend Jim Harbaugh under these protocols and premise. What happens there is hard to know. This is not exactly a lot of case law you can lean back on coaches getting suspended for advanced scouting operations by a league. You talk to attorneys that aren't involved or are from different parts of the country. There's definitely a lot of wobble in what the Big Ten tried to do, in sort of jumping the gun on the general protocol, the due process. Some of their reasoning is a little flimsy, but at the same time, when you join an organization voluntarily, as anyone does when they join a conference, it can be very difficult to win a case saying, I'm not, I can beat the rules of this conference if that's the right way. So very interested to see how it goes. I mean, look, the thing is taking place in downtown Ann Arbor. The judge in it also is a lecturer sometimes at Michigan, so you can imagine the rate my professor ratings that you get if you. But Michigan has a heck of a law school and has a lot of attorneys, so it's not easy to find things. It's the whole thing's a mess, right? And so I'm hoping Harbaugh speaks. He said he wants to. I doubt his lawyers I doubt he will at the hearing, but for entertainment purposes, I'm certainly hoping that we get Jim Harbaugh speaking or on the stand or something fun here. We get like a few good men shouting.
Oh, give me that. Yes.
Yeah. You can't handle the truth of O'Connor Stallions.
Golly, that's great for your articles, for your podcast, and for my. I mean, I can't believe we've had Michigan people on, and the things are getting over 10,000 views on YouTube. I'm going, this Harbaugh is so big and polarizing. People will go find, as you know, the content. Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports, best-selling author on the Out of Bounds show. Okay. What are you still surprised that Tony Petitti went through with this and the fact that Fox couldn't back him down and maybe some other people couldn't say, Tony, this is not the direction you want to go?
I'm surprised at how it went down, and that's you can this story is interesting because there's a lot of buckets, right? So whether you think Harbaugh should be punished or not is one bucket, or you think this sign stealing.
I think a fine and move on, to be honest. But I've grown up in the SEC.
Yeah, that's what would have happened in the SEC. I had some conversations with people in the SEC. Like, what are the chances that there would be a conference call with Greg Sankey and 13 coaches to discuss Nick Saban, where they just all bash the heck out, or any other coach? Right?
Zero.
0% chances. So what you have is a first-year Big Ten commissioner. You also have a first-year NCAA president. So this information came to the NCAA via some kind of like private investigator, was brought to them that way. So we still don't know all of that genesis, how the information was obtained. But one of the reasons the Big Ten said we have to act is because Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA himself, got involved in the case and deemed it a serious case and made the call to the Big Ten themselves. And they said, boy, this is extraordinary. NCAA president never gets involved in cases, right? This is one of the weaker parts of why they had to suspend Jim Harbaugh. Well, the NCAA president never gets involved in cases. That the fact that Charlie Baker's been on the job 7 months and is a politician, not a typical person who came up through college athletics, that's not a reason. He just might have overreacted, or he got all excited, or he thought this was his job when it's never been anyone's job. right? So you had an unusual reaction, probably an overreaction there. And then you have a commissioner who says, hey, let's talk to the coaches, and all the coaches just bash Harbaugh and declare this the biggest thing ever, and this is a massive advantage, and they downplay how they steal the signs and how they share signs with each other, or they don't even mention it. And so you have two kind of inexperienced people who don't have all those years of training, hadn't seen these things, and said, hey, hold on. Everything seems like a big scandal the first minute. Let's calm down. So that is the surprise in how this was handled. I think even if and that's kind of part of I wouldn't call it concern, but my interest in this is, well, if you're going to react this way to this scandal, what about the next one? And you may think this is the biggest scandal of all time, and maybe it is, okay? Maybe having someone signs is the biggest. What happens when the next one's half as big? Are you suspending the next coach for 1.5 games? The Pandora's box, the precedent here is wild for the Big Ten to look at and the NCAA, because you can sit there and go, oh, there'll never be anything like this. Are you kidding? This is college football. I mean, there's always going to be something. What is sportsmanship, right? Like, you just open up into all these things. And so it's just, the prudent move would be like, relax. Let's let the NCAA play it out. We'll do fine. Like you said, move on. You guys are all stealing each other's signs one way or the other. Now, is that look, we need justice or we need fairness? Is that to that level? No, but there's sort of an operating way that the world works where it's like, sometimes you just got to be like, look, I can't pull over all the cars on the highway, so I can't go too strong on you when I catch you speeding on the highway. Let alone while I'm on the highway with a speed trap, someone's robbing the bank and I'm not paying attention. So there's a lot of stuff. This is college football. Like, this is a kind of a nuclear reaction, and it's like, all right, maybe it merits it. I'm not going to argue that on this bucket, but there's going to be another new thing that's going to come along that's just as big or close to it.
Okay, Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports, best-selling author on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're talking Michigan and Harbaugh against all of the Big Ten. I'm blown away. Y'all been listening to this show. I can't believe Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten, in his first year as the commissioner, went through with this. In the SEC, this is a fine, and we've moved on. And this is actually a team that could go, as we all know, to the college football playoff. This is difficult to handicap, Dan Wetzel, but Michigan without Harbaugh, like, I like Michigan in the game before all this happened, by a score or less in Ann Arbor. But with Michigan without Harbaugh, as good as, whether you like him or not, as good as he is, how do you handicap that as far as the impact on that game, Ohio State, Michigan?
It's hard to know. I mean, first off, this is also the other side of this is another bucket. Like, is this even, like, was this significant enough of a punishment? Firstly, he can coach right up until the guys get on the bus and drive to the game. He just can't be at the stadium. So he's there putting in the game plan, working practice, the motivations and things like that. And that's generally Harbaugh's strength. He's a very good football coach in the purest way. You watch Michigan, if you watch that Penn State game, there's not a lot of tricks to what they're doing. They ran the ball 32 consecutive times to close out the game. 32. They threw one pass technically. It was a DPI, defensive pass interference, so it didn't technically count. So they basically they called one pass play from the middle of the second half on. They just said, you're not going to stop us and you can't score on us. We're going to win the game. We don't care about pyrotechnics. We don't care about the score. We don't care about anything. We're just killing clock, running. So, like, it's part of the sign stealing thing. Like, here's our signs. We're running Blake Corum this way, and then we're going to run Donovan Edwards that way. If you can't stop 32 in a row, that's on you. That's Harbaugh. He doesn't call the offensive plays. Sharon Moore does, who's the acting coach. I think this would be a bigger impact if it was one of the coaches, a Lincoln Riley, a Dan Lanning out west, something like that. I'm not sure if Lane still calls his own plays.
He does.
Lane. You take Lane out of the game day. That's a big difference. You got to change a lot of things. He's about finding really good recruits that aren't 5 stars. He's about building a strategy, a culture, and getting his thing up. And so, I mean, certainly you'd rather have a guy who's coached in the Super Bowl and been around football since, he was a 16-year NFL quarterback. You want that guy on that sideline. But it's not as impactful as it would be for some coaches, I think.
Okay.
For some programs. But we'll find out.
You already know this, Dan Wetzel on the Out of Bounds show and the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Dan, this will be the most watched regular season game, counting streaming and cable, by far and away. Probably was going to be trending that way anyway, but because of this, and you saw the ratings last week from Michigan, Penn State, this will crush every regular season game of all time next weekend.
It'll be, I don't know for a long time. There probably were some games. I don't know what the highest. Last year's game between Ohio State and Michigan had 17 million viewers.
Wow.
It was the biggest game of the year by a lot. I think nothing. It's hard to get to 12, 11. Sometimes you get a 1-2 Alabama, LSU, something like that. But it did 17 last year because of the stakes of, winner's going to go and all that, presumably to the playoff. They both ended up going to the playoff. Probably going to be 2 versus 3. They're both going to probably be 11-0. You throw the Harbaugh drama in, I would say we're well over 20 million. And
wow.
It's gonna be a monster game.
How about that, Jason? Over 20 million streaming or watching Ohio State at Michigan.
You have all the people in college football who want to watch, and then you have 2 very large states. These states are top 8 and 10. I don't know what the total population, but you have that. You have fan bases, and then just it's that holiday weekend. A lot of people kind of are looking for something to do on Saturday at noon. So it's a monster. It'll be the game of the year. And the drama on the field, off the field, is Harbaugh there? It's chaos, and there's still a belief. Whether there's no truth, but like I said, Ohio State, the one that turned them in.
Sure.
And, just you name it, it's there. I can't think of this is the last game like this with so much drama around it. To me, was when Cam Newton was playing for Auburn. There were all these cries that he should be suspended and all this stuff, and the SEC was like, I think like you said, how do things get handled? We're not benching Cam Newton. He's one of the greatest players we've ever had, and this team can win the national title. Beat him on the field. We don't care. We don't care if his dad made a couple bucks. Like, let's play football, right? That's how you do it. In this, it's like but that reminds me of that, where there was just so much outside drama, and then it was like, man, Bama might be the last team that could possibly stop them, and they could not.
I've got 30 seconds, real quick. Who do you think A&M will hire?
So we talked about this on College Football Inquirer podcast yesterday, and both Ross Dellinger and Pat Forty thought Lane Kiffin was our bet. We kind of had a little, a betting draft. I don't know how you describe it, but the most likely candidate would be Lane Kiffin. Like, if they offer, would he take it? And do they offer, because he's pretty, he's had a really good season. So I'm sure a few people listening don't want to hear that. But that was their reasoning, and I kind of agree as a probability play that might be the most likely.
All right, so Dan Wetzel, Ross Dellinger, and Pat Forty on the pod had Lane Kiffin as possibly the leader in the clubhouse. Dan Wetzel, we appreciate it.
Anytime, my man.
Thank you, man.
Talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Yahoo Sports best-selling author Dan Wetzel joined us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. The show is brought to you by the Purple Mattress from any of the Miskelly sleep stores in the state of Mississippi. And don't forget about, obviously, Miskelly Furniture out there in Pearl, right kind of diagonal from Rick's from RPT commercial. Sofas, sectionals, bar stools, end tables, you name it. But that recliner is important from now through the Super Bowl. May need 2. Couple for the man room and for the living room. Powered by Miskelly Furniture and any of the Miskelly sleep stores. Dave Bartu at 9:30.